Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Relationship Advice and it's by user Deleted. My female 50 daughter-in-law, 24 female, gave birth and doesn't seem to want a relationship with me, making it difficult to have a relationship with my son, 31 male, and my new granddaughter. My son Daniel, 31, has been married to my daughter-in-law Beatrice, 24, since September 2020. Due to the pandemic, I never really got to know her because they only dated for about a year before they got married, and I didn't know about her until they had dated for about 6 months. I love my son very much, but I feel like our relationship has been rocky since they got married. He has a daughter from a previous relationship who is 10, and since they got together, I haven't had the same relationship with her. I know this is partially because he moved out of my house, very suddenly without really saying anything, I may add. And I no longer get her on his weekends. I try to get them to bring her to visit when they have her, but usually I only see her once a month or so, and lately it has felt like she has been more distant when she visits. I think this is because Beatrice says negative things about me around her, and I find that unfair. They just had a baby at the end of January. She was induced due to preeclampsia and in labor for 3 days before having a C-section. I had been in an accident a few weeks prior and don't have a vehicle, and my son refused to pick me up to be there for the labor at all or to see the baby in the hospital. But her parents got to see the baby and were in the parking lot the entire time. I called him while she was in labor a few times, but on the second day after her water broke, I called him and heard her snap at him to get off the phone, and he refused to accept any calls after that. I just wanted to know that the three of them were okay though. She was in the hospital 2 days after the C-section and they wouldn't stop to visit me on their way home after the birth because she was hurting, even though she had painkillers she could have taken and she didn't feel right according to my son. This is when I became concerned she had postpartum depression. My daughter ended up picking up her prescriptions and some groceries for them and got to see the baby that night. She and Beatrice have a relationship that is apparently pretty good. I was supposed to visit a couple of days after they got home, but she ended up insisting something was wrong and went back to the doctor, who apparently sent her back to the hospital. My son told me they diagnosed her with postpartum preeclampsia, but I was pretty certain that was only something that happened during the pregnancy and went away after birth, so I was pretty sure he was confused. The day after they admitted her again, 5 days after the baby was born, with everyone having met her but me, was my birthday. I called her around 8 a.m. that morning to see what was really going on, but she didn't answer. A while later, my son called me and wished me a happy birthday and asked why I called Beatrice. I admit I snapped at him and said she should be returning my call because I called her. I hung up on him and maybe 5 minutes later, she called me. I told her she should have called me and that I wanted to hear her voice and hear from her what was going on since my son gets confused. I then asked her if this was a mental or physical issue, and she went silent before saying physical. I asked if she was sure, and she got kind of snippy and said they had padding on her bed because she was a seizure risk and shouldn't be alone with her newborn, so she was pretty sure. I didn't comment on her tone because I was sure she was stressed. She was released the next day and they came and visited me while I was at my daughter's watching her 2 kids on their way home so I could see the baby. I offered her some pillows to sit on. My son said she basically gave birth both ways. Even though I knew this wasn't true, I wondered if she had some soreness that made me think this, and she refused my hospitality, saying she was fine and felt pretty good. 2 weeks later, my son picked me up and brought me to their home to visit. I stayed for a few hours, and she didn't really make any effort to talk to me. She was just quiet and sat on the couch. When my son took me home, I asked why she was so unhospitable, and he said I had been rude while she was in the hospital, that she shouldn't have had to call me, and that I shouldn't have asked if it was a mental or physical problem because he had already told me it was physical. He also said I shouldn't have posted anything on Facebook before her about the baby being born, and that I was rude when he called to make me take it down. She doesn't post on social media very often, so I didn't think it would be a big deal. He hasn't picked me up to see the baby because he says he needs to be there to help with the baby, and they won't bring the baby to me because he says the baby isn't allowed in my house. I told my son I'm planning to quit my job to babysit for them, but I haven't even gotten her return to work date, and she hasn't once thanked me for doing it. Overall, I feel like she's holding on to some very petty things and is using them to keep me from my son and granddaughters. I want a relationship with her, but I am missing some critical bonding time with the baby, and I'm going to struggle to forgive her for it. Especially over petty nonsense she won't even bring up to talk to me. I'm really wanting to send a text and lay all my feelings out for her and just hash it out, but I understand there are probably cultural differences at play with all of this too, so I could use some advice on what to say. Well, OP, here's what you send. Nothing. You say nothing. You sound very overbearing, like you don't understand what boundaries really are. Your son having a baby with his wife is not about you. It is about them and the baby, and it is time for them. If you can't go see them because you're bedridden due to an accident, I'm so sorry that happened, but they can't focus on you. They have a baby to focus on. Also, your daughter-in-law had a horrible labor. Do you think she has the energy to deal with you? And by the way, a quick Google search on preeclampsia, the first search was, can you get it postpartum? And the answer is yes. Also, do you have any proof that your daughter-in-law has been poisoning your older granddaughter's mind with negative things about you? And finally, did they ask you to quit your job so that you could babysit for them? I don't think so, because you didn't mention that. You just said that you were going to do it and they haven't said anything yet. I wonder why. OP, I want to really think that your heart is in the right place, but you sound incredibly selfish. It all has to be about you. Everything that you want, everybody mistreats you, or everything is unfair towards you. Maybe your older granddaughter is growing up and becoming a preteen and has other interests. Maybe your son and his wife are preoccupied with her health and the baby. Maybe you're just too much and they need a little bit of a break. Regardless, leave them alone for a bit, OP. That's the best thing you can do. And what do you guys think about this whole situation? What would you do if you were in OP's shoes, or what would you say to OP? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Vanman32 says, quote, "They wouldn't stop to visit me on their way home after the birth because she was hurting." End quote. What the actual F? They have a newborn and the mother had a C-section. Father's priority is taking that child and mother safely home. You're not the priority here. If my mom pulled any of the crap you were doing, I'd kick her to the curb. That's speaking as someone who had a baby recently. I wasn't about to go visit with a newborn after both my wife and I had been stressed and sleep deprived. A woman about to give birth is a stressful time before, during, and after. My wife needed me and her parents by her side. Video call. The rest is secondary. Sorry, but that's how it goes if someone is going to push a literal human out of them. And OP responds, "I wanted to support her too, but she wouldn't let my son leave to pick me up. I understand it was stressful, but I could have been helpful. She just made my son cut me out. I genuinely wanted to help her through it. Don't get me wrong, some of this is coming from a selfish place, but I know my son was terrified towards the middle and end, and I'm sure she was too, and I could have helped them through it. I understand it's stressful after, but I didn't expect anything from her swinging by. I just wanted them to stop so I could peek in the window and see my granddaughter. Her parents had got to go up shortly after she gave birth and got out of recovery, but I couldn't because I didn't have a car. They can drive right by my house if they go through the city to get home instead of taking the highway. It would have been really quick, and I could have given them some food to take home too. I want them all to be supported and taken care of." Cabbage Patch Itch says, "You're not a good mother-in-law and she doesn't like you, rather not be around you, and doesn't want you around her child. I'm sorry that no one in your life will tell you, and they would rather go low contact than address the issue, but this is the issue. Of course, I don't know you. I'm basing off your wildly oblivious post. I don't know what advice to give. I doubt a living soul could convince you to improve your behavior." Noor Mayan says, "All the things your son said about you being rude are correct. You seem invasive and self-important. I'm guessing that your daughter-in-law has experienced this behavior from you before and she goes out of her way to avoid you. If you really want to rebuild this relationship, I suggest that you take their feelings about your behavior to heart. Give them space and privacy, expect little, and be graceful for what you get from them. Additional information from OP's comments. I love Beatrice, we are just very different, and I guess what I'm used to when people have a baby is different than what she is. In my family, we all came together to help, and my parents wanted everyone there to help. She seems to not want that. I don't think I've been overbearing in their relationship, at least not to her. My son told me she was shy, so I barely contacted her to make her comfortable. I would just reach out to her if I hadn't heard from my son. When she got pregnant though, I made sure to check in so she knew she had support close by. She seems to have no respect for me being her mother-in-law. It's very disappointing. I'm astounded by all the people who don't feel that grandparents are needed in children's lives and that I'm simply owed nothing. I'm a grandparent and do deserve to be in my grandchildren's life. I also deserve not to have my eldest granddaughter turned against me. Saying they owe me nothing is incorrect, and courts would agree with that. I love them both, so I don't want it to come to that, but I am owed that. Without me, that child would not be here, and I don't think she realizes it. I can't go see them whenever I have the chance. We don't have taxi cabs, and Uber would have been well out of my budget and isn't in their tiny town, so I can't take one back. I just wanted to see the baby and she refused to take any of the painkillers once discharged, period. That was selfish of her, and I had food for them too, so my son wouldn't have had to cook. So I called to check on them. In my family, it's just common to call back, especially after having a baby. I see it as a cultural difference. I just want to support them. They didn't ask me to babysit for them outright. I heard Beatrice telling my daughter about her struggle to find good daycare without a long wait and how she was scared for the safety of her baby. So I told my son that they won't have to worry if I watch her. It wouldn't be for free and I don't plan to live with them. I also had planned to watch my daughter's 2 children, but we currently are not on speaking terms. Wonder why. So I may get a part-time job for weekends to supplement my income a little bit, but either way, I will be okay. Finally, I told my son I was sorry for hurting her feelings when he told me. I've always apologized to him when he's told me I've done something wrong in her eyes, whether I think it was wrong or not. I don't want to hurt her feelings ever. I want her to know she doesn't have to run to my son though. She can come to me, and I want a chance to explain myself to her. Alright, well, the community was saying a lot and OP was not listening and just deflecting everything. Anyways, before we move on to the update, we're gonna do a quick stop on legal advice where OP begins her short-lived journey with grandparents' rights. So as I said, the post is from legal advice and of course the user is deleted. Grandparents' rights, Indiana. I'm seeking advice on getting grandparents' rights in Indiana. My son has 2 daughters with 2 different women. The oldest is 10 and he and her mother were never married. No custody agreement, they just have an informal agreement. The youngest is almost 2 months old and he and her mother are married. I was under the impression that any grandparent could petition for custody or visitation in the US, but the way I'm reading it, I can't unless my son is incarcerated or they aren't married. Is this correct? What do I need to do to seek joint custody of my granddaughters? What do I need to build a solid case? I've already tried resolving this without going this drastic, but his wife doesn't want to work with me. I think the girls deserve to know and have the benefits of all of their grandparents. I want a relationship with them and to be a grandma. Nothing is wrong with their current living situation, though I do think my son's house could be cleaner, but I believe they have been speaking poorly of me to the older daughter. Additional information from OP's comments. I can't travel to them currently. If I could, I would be over there as often as I could be. I have apologized even though I don't think I was wrong. If she felt slighted by anything I said, I apologized for it. Really though, I don't think it should matter. You don't use kids as pawns. I can have a relationship with my granddaughters without her, or I should be able to. That's what I thought grandparents' rights were for. To make sure parents couldn't stop an essential relationship with grandparents without a damn good reason, like abuse or drug use, etc. My son says she's not preventing me from seeing them and appreciates my apologies, but I still haven't seen my grandchildren. And well, after getting shot down from legal advice, she returned to relationship advice with an update, and it's time to move on with that. But of course, before that, here is another one of my playlists for you to enjoy after this video. Now let's finish this story with the update. Well, I apologized to my daughter-in-law for all the things my son listed. Since I had received feedback about it being my son's job to handle his family, I told him my apologies to pass along, and then I waited. However, I got no response from Beatrice. No thank you, no trying to bury the hatchet, nothing. So, last Friday, I made an appointment with an attorney to discuss my grandparents' rights and had that appointment on Tuesday. The lawyer told me I had a good chance with my older granddaughter, but would likely get nowhere with the baby. I filled out some paperwork to get the process started, but Tuesday night I was questioning if I was doing the right thing. I called one of my friends, Daisy, to discuss this and was seriously considering not moving forward with it after talking to her. Then yesterday, I received this message from Beatrice. OP, this is Beatrice. I just wanted to let you know that Daisy told us you're intending to go for grandparents' rights and also shared everything you've had to say about me. Let me first say that I have not once kept either of the girls from you, and I certainly have not kept Daniel from you. He is a grown-ass man. If he wanted to talk to you, he was free to. You have not asked to come over and visit since Daniel picked you up, and you cannot expect us to 1. Read your mind, or 2. Drop everything and come pick you up. We have a new baby and we have our own lives. I also have not said a word to you about what happened during delivery or postpartum because I have no energy to argue with you. Daniel said you apologized and I told him I appreciated it, even though it was not a real apology. You apologized for what you did to hurt my feelings, not that my feelings were hurt. I don't have time for your drama. For the record though, what you said was absolutely disgusting. I almost died. It had nothing to do with my mental health. Anyway, since you have decided to go for grandparents' rights, we will have no direct contact with you. All contact will need to go through our lawyer. You have been removed from my Facebook. You are not permitted to post any pictures you have been sent of my child on social media, and Lisa, older granddaughter's mom, feels the same way regarding Rachel, older granddaughter. We intend to have something written up by our attorney and sent to you by the end of the week regarding all of this, and for you to cease contact with us. I assume we will be served with your visitation paperwork this week as well. You will get no pictures or phone calls going forward. In fact, you will be blocked. I also hope you realize you will absolutely lose this case. Your house is not suitable to live in, and you would need to have to pass a drug test. When you lose, we will not resume contact with you. You lost your chance at being a part of our kids' lives by deciding to go the most nuclear option instead of just communicating with us. I tried to respond to her and tell her that I didn't want to go through with it anymore and that I reacted out of anger, but she wouldn't answer texts or calls, so I assume I really am blocked. I called my son to tell him about the text she sent me, and he said he knew about it and it was a lot nicer than what he wanted to send me. So that's where I am at this point. I'm going to show my lawyer the text so that it can show how unwilling to forgive and to work with me she is, and hopefully it will resolve quickly so I can at least get visitation rights with my oldest granddaughter. Extended from OP's comments. She mentions a drug test because I use medical marijuana to help with a chronic illness, but it is still illegal where I live. But now I am quitting entirely since this is a possibility. I could get an Uber there, it would be expensive, but they live in a small town and I wouldn't be able to get one home. No taxis, no bus, their town is around 3,000 people. It's around 30 minutes by car, so I can't walk or bike there. I don't feel I deserve to be treated better, but equally. We are both equally important in my son's life. She is obviously more important in her daughter's life right now, but without me, that baby wouldn't be here. I reacted out of anger and desperation, but now it's the only option since I'm cut off. They need to have better cultural examples. For instance, Lisa is also not from our culture or race, and her hair is very different from her daughter's. She has no idea how to take care of her hair. It's always a mess. My daughter-in-law has taken some initiative in doing this and styling her hair, but she's still not great at it. The girls need someone who can teach them how to handle basic things like taking care of their skin and hair. Rachel's hair has been something I have encouraged them to let me handle long before Beatrice came into the picture. Not taking care of a child's hair is a form of neglect. My daughter knows how to do those things because her hair and skin are much closer to theirs and she can handle it with her own children. Edit to add, I don't appreciate the nasty messages I have received or the barrage of nasty comments. I admit I made a mistake, but now this is my only option. It's clear that most of the responses from Reddit are from those of young people, not from my generation, as I have gotten different responses in other online support groups from people my own age who are also grandparents, many from my own culture. And after that, OP did not come back. She deleted the account. Apparently she didn't like the feedback that she was given and just decided to leave. Maybe she's still out there. Maybe she has a new account and she's asking the same question from a different perspective. Who knows? But at this point, we all know how this is going to end. Her petition is going to fail and she's going to be no contact with her son and her grandchildren and her daughter-in-law. And all because OP just can't accept that she's wrong. OP, hopefully you do understand someday what you've done wrong and how your behavior has pushed the people that you love away from you. Take care, OP, and thank you for sharing. Now, we can't end the video on that note, so let's finish it on a mood booster post note. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance and it's by user Rowery. Work laid me off and sent me an address and their billing account information to send my remote work package back. I complied. Thursday morning last week, I got an appointment randomly scheduled with the CEO. Come to find out, they were laying me off and would send further details via email. In the email, it just said, sometime during this week, send your laptop, monitor, and computer accessories to XYZ address and use their billing account. I complied. I went to my local FedEx with just the items unpacked. I asked the worker if they would package it all for me using their highest quality wrap and make sure it was incredibly secure. They just smiled and said they understand exactly what to do since I told them I got laid off by this company and I don't care how much they bill them. They began using foot after foot of bubble wrap and yards of tape. Come to end of the packaging process, they showed me the bill and it's $68. Not a ton, but it was worth the laughs. Well, there you go, OP. Some malicious compliance with a pinch of petty revenge. Thanks for sharing. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.